Back when I was playing, the cut-off age for girls to play with boys was 10 or 11. I think now it's changed, it's like 16 or 17. But back then, being that age and it coming up to the sort of age where me and the two other girls on the team, we were having to like kind of decide if we kept playing for a girls team or if, you know, like that could be it for football for us, because you couldn't play with the boys anymore. I think there was obviously the issues of going into like 11-a-side and having to share changing rooms with the boys and whatnot, which I understand, but to be 10 or 11 and just being told that because you're a girl you can't play with the boys anymore because of your gender, it sucked. But because the boys team I played for, they were like my family, like we would do everything together on the weekends and stuff, so just knowing that you had to kind of leave that behind, that was kind of a disappointment. So we used to just have like a petition that we would try and get all of the families to sign, both our home team and then obviously the away team. So we just really tried to push for the petition, and I know that a load of the other local clubs around the Sussex area tried to do exactly the same. You tackle a boy or something, they'd be like, oh, you just got tackled by a girl, and then it's one of them things where it's like, in your head, you're like, ouch, but you kind of give that characteristic of like, yeah, you just got tackled by a girl. So, and being like 5-6 years old and having that sort of mentality, it was kind of cool. But honestly, when I first started, I just thought it was just going to be a hobby. Like, I never thought that I would be like wanting to pursue like a career out of it. My dad used to joke about with me though when I was younger. He'd be like, oh, because you're playing football, like you could potentially go and play in America. And then it's so crazy that like the last 4.5 years of my life, like I've been out there. So out in America, the college system is kind of, it's massive. So the way that they respect the athletes is just amazing. I think that sometimes even like you see it with like especially American football and like especially men's basketball, sometimes those male sports are idolized a little bit more than actually professional teams. Being a women's soccer player, I never found that sort of like inequality, but I know that there are sports teams out there that have seen that firsthand.
When we were playing football for even boys teams, there was always this kind of stigma around how you were going to be treated when you were on the pitch. Especially, I think, at a young age as well. You always have that, oh, she's just a girl, and they never really take you seriously. I think I was quite lucky that I got into a girls' team at quite a young age, about 11. So when I was in a girls' team, you didn't get that. When you had people that came to watch you, they were there to watch you. It wasn't about your gender or anything like that.
I think there's a key moment at probably about 13, 14, 15, where there's a lot of drop-off. There's a drop-off in boys football, but certainly in girls football there'll be a massive drop-off after when they start getting to 11-a-side football. The commitment it takes. A lot of people are stuck in their ways, and the club is set up for men's football more than women's and youth football. So yeah, I think in many ways, like you say, in terms of fans, travelling to games, the stigma back in the day about women playing football in general, you wouldn't have got the uptake that you get nowadays. So was it a viable thing to run? Like most teams that ran a women's team, I'm guessing you're doing it not for profit.
I think the connection with a community is important. It's challenging when the players have to come from quite a distance away at times. So often the match day community is the first thing you can look at. So you can add mascots on the day. That brings the local people in, local children in, male and female, to come and watch their local team. But sometimes players have a bit more time if they're not in full-time employment, or they're full-time employment with a club. It's obviously a lot easier. Or they may be in education, where sometimes they'll have some time off. So I think it is important, but you've got to remember that a lot of the players have to give a lot of their time just travelling to and from games and training sessions.
For us, we don't run a women's team or any of our teams just because we think it's something we should do. We run it because we go, actually, there is part of our club. We've got a huge community in Worthing. Lots of men and women and children involved in the club, whether it be volunteering as staff or it be playing, and every single one of them needs to feel part of the club. It shouldn't be just a little attachment that happens. I think all clubs would want to run a women's team, but resources wise, there's a lot of volunteers with not a lot of time and not a lot of training of how to run a club. If your women's team don't feel part of the club, and don't feel part of the community and what you're doing, then you shouldn't run it. So I just think a little bit more support with the people that actually run the clubs and run the teams, the people that are in charge of budgets, and understanding how to manage those budgets to be sustainable, rather than run something, it doesn't work, or it loses money, and then you say, we're going to stop that, and then you start again. There needs to be a lot more training on sort of sustainability of your teams.
In terms of grassroots football, the opportunities to play and train on better quality pitches with better quality officials, and everywhere in between, you get those opportunities to say, well, if we can get a better environment to play and train in, then we're going to produce better players. In terms of the support in the women's game, I think you need to be saying if you're going to support it, then the referees need to be at the same level you would give an equivalent team in the men's side of things. So if you've got a Step 5 men's team, trying to bring the level of the referees up would certainly help support that. But also the expectations of clubs to have properly qualified support staff who are able then to help hopefully drive the abilities and move the potential of the players forward. There's lots of other issues we could go into, but I think from my perspective, those are the things which will help take the game to the supporters, and they'll see what a wonderful game it is, whether it's male or female players playing football at the best level or the best level they can. It's exciting to watch.
I think that when men's teams support their women's team, it really changes the stigma around it, because as a fan, when you might see an owner of a club or a male manager turn around and say, get to the women's game, or they played really well, or did you see the score, or even just social media retweeting it and being like, how amazing is our women's team. I think it brings on a lot more, and I think it does get maybe more casual fans a little bit more interested.
People who are supporting that team, coaching staff, support staff, and having a connection with some of the members of the board who come and watch the game, because often members of the board give their time for nothing and often putting their own money into teams, so they've got a vested interest. And I think if you can offer as best example as you can of how you conduct yourself, how the team play, what your aspirations of the team for, I think that is a positive thing that any manager can do.
If you have the same sort of reciprocation of the men's teams, then I think that young girls, it will just look to inspire them in a way as well, so they don't have to feel that they can only love the game if they're playing at a top level. They can love the game playing at whatever level they enjoy.
But one of the things you can do is to say everyone gets the same kit. So it shouldn't matter whether you're man, woman, boy, girl, it shouldn't really matter. And we try and put as much effort into our youth teams, into our women's and men's senior teams, as we do into all our teams. We try, and I think it's a little bit unique here as well. Like you come to the sessions, like you've seen it outside, you'll see the senior team staff working with the youth teams, you'll see the 18s, you'll see the men, you see the women all on the pitch, one after the other. Try and give them equal time, equal resources as much as we can. But yeah, massively important. If it ever gets to a point where they don't feel part of the club, then I think we shouldn't be doing it.